Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and sometimes you focus on one committee and something's going on actually in another committee. There are so many committees in the House and the Senate that it's hard to keep track of them all. And I don't know how I let this one slip through. Well, actually, I was looking at the Senate Intelligence Committee and trying to keep up with them, but all the time, look what's been going on in the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. Ooh, some good stuff here. So, the head of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee is Ron Johnson, and Chuck Grassley is the chairman of the Finance Committee, and then Senator Lee is a member of the Judiciary. Now, I've been kind of focusing on the Judiciary and, like I said, the Senate Intel Committee, but this has been going on. Okay, so let's find out. Well, first of all, Johnson, Grassley, and Lee call for answers regarding intelligence community changing requirements for whistleblowers. Now, on September 30th, they sent off a letter trying to find out. They sent it to the ICIG, that's the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and they were trying to figure out, hey, who actually changed that whistleblower form so the person no longer has to have firsthand knowledge? Well, good question. So they wrote a letter, and you know how they always have the letters, but so many good things going on. And they wrote it to Michael K. Atkinson, who is the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. That's the ICIG. That's what they usually call him. He's the one that labeled the whistleblower as credible. So, if he would not have labeled them as credible, that would have changed things immensely, and it would have been really nice for him to have done that. But, oh no, you got to kind of wonder about this guy, and I don't know much about him, but anyway. So they were referring to a recent news report. The Office of the Intelligence Community Inspector General changed its disclosure of urgent concern form, the document by which a whistleblower submits a complaint that can be transmitted to Congress, to no longer require firsthand knowledge of alleged wrongdoing. Okay, now we all know that. That came out in the news, and that's pretty much general knowledge now, that the form that they had was not the same form that they'd been using. Now, Chuck Grassley, if you recall, maybe from one of my previous videos, he has been very involved with the whistleblower community. In fact, they kind of called him the patron saint of the whistleblower community. So if you haven't seen that video, there it is. And if you look at this, it was saying that the form was approved on May 24th, 2018. And this is what supposedly it said. At least this is the report described a previous version of the form, which was approved on May 24, 2018, that included a section titled First-Hand Information Required and stated, in order to find an urgent concern credible, the ICIG must be in possession of reliable first-hand information. Okay, so this is supposedly the statement that was there, and I'm sure by now you've already seen it because, like I said, it's been everywhere on the news. And yet the version that they have says that it was revised in August 2019 and no longer includes this requirement, and instead has a couple of boxes, and one of them either said they were supposed to check either I have direct and personal knowledge of whatever the information is, or I heard about it from others. Okay. So this is what this letter is asking. It says, we want to know the answers to these questions. You know, give us all the previous versions of this disclosure because we want to see where it was and indicate the dates when each version was in use. Why did the ICIG initially require firsthand information in its May 2018 disclosure form? Why did the ICIG remove the requirement for firsthand information? And prior to May 2018, did any intake form or practice require firsthand information? How many whistleblower complaints has the ICIG dismissed or prevented from following the ICWPA process, the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act process, because they did not contain firsthand information? How many complaints have been filed since the August 2019 form change? When did the ICIG begin using the current version of the form, which notes that it was revised sometime in August 2019? Who is authorized to make revisions to the form? I want to know that question. Who initiated the approval process for the May 2018 form and the August 2019 revision concerning the first-hand versus second-hand information requirement on the form? I think that's very interesting too. Please list all personnel who were involved in and approved both the May 2018 and August 2019 versions of the form. Did the ICIG provide any notice, formally or informally, about A, using a form that required firsthand knowledge, or B, revising the form to no longer require it? If so, please explain in what manner and to whom. If no notice was provided, explain why not. Did the administrative process by which the most recent version of the form was approved differ in any way from the processes used to approve prior forms? Please explain. Please provide all records discussing the creation of the May 2018 form, as well as the change in reporting standards found on the August 2019 form. And then they always give, this was really, kind of nice, which the Democrats have not been doing because they have no reason. But they always give the reason here as to why they're asking for this information. It's like, well, we're authorized by this rule specifically right here that gives us the authority to do this. All right. Which, again, the Democrats don't do because they don't have that authority and they're misusing it. So there was a press release that came out on September 30th. Now, that's the same day as this letter was sent out. See, this was September 30th. So they kind of crossed paths, I think, or maybe they got that letter first and then they put out this press release. There's not much really in here that we didn't already know, and they don't exactly answer the questions that were asked. I mean, there's some things that they did address, but not a lot of it. And according to them, they're trying to say that the version that the guy used, the whistleblower, he actually was using the same form as in May of 2018. But it specifically said revised, REV, and then August 2019. So even though they're saying, no, it's the same form, I'm not believing them. So, you can go through, I'll leave all the links down below. You can go ahead and read the whole thing if you want to. But they were not happy with the answers. So they came back on October 2nd and they said, you know what? We appreciate, the press release you put out, but you didn't answer our questions. And so they go through and see it had an REV : August 2019. So that's what they keep saying. Okay, it had that on there. So it is not the one that was in place May 24th, 2018, because it wouldn't say revised August 2019 on it if it was. So they want to know that. They want to know also, who's behind this? And is it routine practice? And did you follow the same procedures you always did? Or was this, a new procedure just so you could get that one pushed through? It just looks very, very fishy. And so if you go through and you read these questions, I think they really are kind of interesting. And right here on this one, in the press release, it says that the complainant checked 2 boxes on the disclosure form, indicating both I have personal and or direct knowledge of events or records involved, and other employees have told me about events or records involved. And the thing is, the person was not, although the complainant's letter acknowledged that the complainant was not a direct witness to the president's July 25th phone call. It's just like, it's trying to say both. They're kind of backing down on it. And just when you go through and you read these, it gets a little frustrating. And so, of course, they give them this information, and because sometimes there is classified information involved, that they have to separate that. I mean, that's what this executive order here says, basically, is that if there is some kind of report that you're giving to Congress and it does have classified elements in it, then the elements that are classified have to be kept separate from the other material. So that way the other material can be released to the public. So there, is a little thing there. But anyway, and always give them contact information, and that's all down there. Oh, I'm sorry. It's signed by Ron Johnson, Chuck Grassley, and Mike Lee. Okay? So those are the 3 people that are kind of spearheading this. Well, there was a response, and I'm not sure what it was, October 8th. I couldn't find that. But evidently, they did respond, but it still was not answering the questions. And so they wrote back again, and this is October 16th. They wrote again, and it's like, here's the questions you still haven't answered. Please provide all previous versions of the disclosure of urgent concern form and indicate the dates when each version was in use. Why did the ICIG initially require firsthand information in its May 2018 disclosure form? Because they did point out that technically, according to the law, it never did state that they had to have firsthand knowledge. Okay, so they wonder why that was put in the first place, and then why it was suddenly taken out again. So that's what they're asking on that. How many whistleblower complaints has the ICIG dismissed or prevented from following the ICWPA process because they did not contain firsthand information? How many complaints have been filed since the August 2019 form change? Who is authorized to make revisions to the form? That's a question I really want. Who initiated A, the approval process for the May 2018 form, and B, the August 2019 revision concerning the first-hand versus second-hand information requirement on the form? Please list all personnel who were involved in and approved both the May 2018 and August 2019 versions of the form. I really do want to know their names. Did the administrative processes by which the most recent version of the form was approved differ in any way from the processes used to approve prior forms? Please explain. Please provide all records discussing the creation of May 2018 form as well as change in reporting standards found on the August 2019 form. Okay. And then unanswered questions from the August 2nd letter. It's almost exactly the same question. So in other words, they didn't answer anything from there. And so these were all the questions they were asking. Oh, so much that they're skirting it. And you got to wonder if they're skirting it. Well, that to me says, I think they're hiding something. So then they just said, please respond to these questions no later than October 18th. And again, they give the thing about this is why we're doing it, because this is part of our oversight. And we anticipate that your written reply and most responsive documents will be unclassified. And again, with the order that makes sure that they separate the classified from the unclassified. And signed again by the three guys. Okay? So this was the October 16th letter. Well, they're still, waiting for a response to it. I don't think they got one. And so I just wanted to point out some of the other things that are going on, because the original that I came up with was, I was looking into this because this Ron Johnson back in 2018 asked for some FBI information, some emails and texts from 16 FBI officials. And he also asked for, he wrote a letter to Christopher Wray, and in there, that was January 20th of 2018, and he asked not only for some more Lisa Page and Peter Strzok stuff, but he also wanted to know about why they were, they said, oh, well, we lost all the data from that time period. And it's like, this is exactly when they were doing all that scheming. So the idea that they lost it, it's like, yeah, I don't think so. So he wanted to know about that. He also put in a little bit of the Page and Strzok text messages here. And then down here at the bottom, he talks, and this was the thing about the Loretta Lynch and Comey coming out and saying things. And this is where they basically said, yeah, it's a real profile in courage since she knows no charges will be brought. That was Lynch. In other words, Lynch knew ahead of time that they were not going to bring any charges against Clinton. And so anyway, these are the things that he asked for back then. And he said, okay, in light of the Department of Justice's notification that FBI records from the Clinton investigation are missing, and as the Senate committee with jurisdiction over federal records, I ask that you please produce the following information and material. And he's writing this to Christopher Wray, okay, head of the FBI. So he wants to know, please explain the scope and scale of all records lost, destroyed, otherwise alienated during mid-year exam investigation. Does the FBI have any records of the communications? So these are the questions that he wants to know. And so he's been asking for this about Clinton and the whole Peter Strzok, Lisa Page thing, and the FBI saying, oh, we lost all this stuff. Well, that's not all he's been working on, because he also made a request. And look at this, October 31st, Johnson requests Clinton-Obama emails from U.S. National Archives and Records Administration. So yeah, he's the chairman, remember, of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, sent a letter to archivist David Ferriero of the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration Thursday to request email communication between former Secretary Clinton and President Obama. I want to see him too. I really would love to see some of the emails between them, because it says, based on a communication from FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok to FBI Director James Comey's Chief of Staff, James Rybicki, there appears to be multiple emails that exist between Secretary Clinton and President Obama. On June 28, 2016, a week before former FBI Director Comey's public statement exonerating Secretary Clinton, FBI Special Agent Strzok wrote, "Jim, I have the POTUS HRC emails," Director Comey requested at end of briefing yesterday. "I hesitate to leave them. Please let me know a convenient time to drop them off." Hey, guess what? There are records. And so here's the letter itself, if you want to read it, because it talks about it here. It's not very long. It's only a couple pages, but there's the text again that I just read. And it's like, yeah, well, we want to know, what were they going back and forth about there? And he asked for the documents as soon as possible, but no later than 5 p.m. on November 14th. So we'll see what happens on that. Since I'm recording this on November 1st, we'll see. It'll be interesting. And I think he's the only one that signed it. Yeah, he's the only one that signed this, but he sent a copy to the ranking member, Gary Peters. So should be interesting if they come up with something on that. Oh, it's just kind of exciting right now, folks. I know it's frustrating on one level, but it's exciting on another level, because we're starting to see everything come out. It's coming out in little drips and pieces here, but it's coming out faster and faster now. It's kind of like when a woman's in labor and the pains start out kind of far apart. And so we'd get a little bit, and then it'd be a while before we get more. Now it's like every day there's something new. And so this is what they're working on. This is October 31st right here. And this is from the United States Senate, which actually it's from both Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley is who it is. So we have here, to the Honorable William P. Barr. Yep, dear Attorney General Barr, following press reports that Connecticut U.S. Attorney John Durham's inquiry into possible wrongdoing involving counterintelligence and law enforcement organizations and practices related to the 2016 presidential campaign has been upgraded to a criminal investigation, we write to reiterate our support for a thorough, fair, and transparent examination of that investigation, regardless of whether or not Mr. Durham decides to file indictments. In order to restore public confidence in the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the intelligence community, the findings of this investigation must be made public to the fullest extent possible. There have been far too many incidents of suspected malfeasance under the Obama administration that have not been fully explained to the American people. Under the previous administration, the public witnessed an array of scandals that lowered their confidence in federal agencies and government officials. These included the ATF's gun-running Fast and Furious operation, the IRS's targeting of conservative nonprofit groups, and Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server during her time as Secretary of State, and the resulting mishandling of highly classified information. Lack of transparency, public awareness, and accountability of government officials encourages additional malfeasance and severely erodes the public trust. Our committee's oversight efforts related to the FBI's handling of the Clinton email scandal and government agency actions related to the FBI's investigation into the now debunked Russia collusion theory have only resulted in more questions. Most troubling, Evidence that we have uncovered, along with public news reports, suggests that government officials in both investigations were politically biased, and that bias may have affected their decision making. No one, not even our federal law enforcement organizations, are above the law or immune from mistakes. If the American people are going to trust their government, then their government must be honest with them. At a time when our nation faces significant challenges, our body politic stands deeply divided. It will remain divided and incapable of seriously addressing those challenges as long as the American public are kept in the dark about suspected actors within the bureaucracy having used their powers of office to affect the outcome of a presidential election and or sabotage a duly elected president. If wrongdoing occurred within government agencies that targeted a presidential candidate and campaign, or subsequent to the election sought to undermine a duly elected president, resulting in the appointment of a special counsel, the public has a right to know as much of the detail of what transpired as possible. If no or minimal wrongdoing occurred, the public needs to know that as well. In conclusion, for the benefit of the American public, we urge you to ensure that appropriate standards of transparency are applied to Mr. Durham's findings so that as much information as possible pertaining to his investigation is made available for public review. Yay! I want to stand up and applaud. Oh, great job, guys. And they also sent a copy of that to Horowitz. So, things are heating up. That was excellent. And that is true. And I honestly believe that Barr is going to put out as much as he can. Now, here's my theory on what's going on with the declassified documents. Because if you remember, Trump gave those classified documents to Barr, and he declassified them and gave Barr the power to be able to use them or to disseminate them as necessary. So here's what I think probably is occurring right now behind the scenes, because remember, so much of what's going on is happening behind the scenes, and we're not party to it, and we only get these little bits and pieces that come out. But we can start putting the puzzle together at this point. I mean, we've got some big chunks that we're already starting to fit together. So what I think's really going to happen is the material that is declassified has to be used for the grand juries, because that's why Trump declassified it, because he knew it was something that the public eventually is going to have to see. Well, we can't see it, though, if it's part of the grand jury information and evidence, you see, because grand jury evidence has to be kept, under wraps. And that was the whole thing about the Mueller report, because the parts that were redacted were being used by the grand juries. And so they couldn't really reveal that. And I don't think any of it can be revealed until the indictments are revealed. And that's where we stand at this point. Folks, there will be indictments. They are going to happen. Now, how many of them are going to come out right now, I'm not sure, but it's looking like more and more all the time, because we're starting to see how it's all connected. I did the whistleblower video, and Charamella, a lot of people think he's the Charlie that was mentioned in the Strzok and Page text messages. Hey, I don't know for sure, but it's kind of looking like all of this is fitting together, because he had dealings, his name is Italian, first of all. And so is he caught up in all the things that were going on in Italy? Because, Italy was hiding Mifsud. And so is that part of it? I don't know for sure, but it's interesting. And then he was in contact with the Alexandra Chalupa lady, and there's just so much. It all starts going back together. It's just great. When it comes to the whistleblower, is he the primary person behind it? No, I think he's a pawn. I think he's somebody, one of the little minions, the foot soldiers. He's been sent to do that. And, they needed somebody who could put in that whistleblower complaint. And honestly, I don't know that there's any repercussions for somebody who puts in a whistleblower complaint that is found to be a lie. I don't think there's anything that happens. But the guy was already fired once for leaking. And then they took him back at the CIA. It's like, yeah, that's what we want. People who leak in the CIA. So I think probably what's happening, like I said, is that all this declassified material that we will eventually see, but right now it's being used by the grand juries to decide whether there will be indictments. And there will be. So once the indictments come out, and as for when they're going to come out with the timing, I kind of wonder if this is why Horowitz's report has been pushed back so much. Because if they recommend, as I've said before, when we get these IG reports out, a lot of times, the lesser ones I'm talking about, if there was a recommendation for criminal charges, that was included in that executive summary for that particular report. And so I think probably what the deal is, there has to be some kind of connection with the Department of Justice before Horowitz can release his report. Because in the past, when I've seen these executive summaries that recommend someone for criminal charges, it always says right then and there that the DOJ, prosecuted or they declined. And so if that's the case, then it could very well be that these indictments have to be done first before that report can be released. And so right now, that's my thought process. I think probably that Horowitz and Durham are working together to try to get the indictments. The grand jury has been impaneled. And today I was listening to Rush and he said, I think they're actually further along than we think. And I've been saying that for a long time, that they really are further along in this investigation. And it's just been kept hush-hush. And when it came out that, it's suddenly a criminal investigation. No, it's been a criminal investigation for a long time. They just didn't leak it because they needed to get all this information and start to make these indictments. So I would assume that the number of sealed indictments are going up quite a bit right now, and that they're still going to probably interview people like Brennan, even though they wouldn't need to if that's the person they're going to indict. But I'm sure they're going to try to get him in there, and he's going to lie his butt off. That's just how he does. Brennan will deny everything to the day he dies, because that man is so focused on his own way of thinking. There is absolutely no way he thinks he did anything wrong. I'm sure of that. He's convinced of it. He did absolutely nothing wrong. He did what was right. And that's going to be really hard to break through that kind of defense. They're not going to get him to confess to anything. It's even when all the evidence is laid out in front of him, he's going to deny it. So Clapper, on the other hand, I think Clapper has been probably trying to think of how he's going to make deals to save his own skin. I really do. He's probably thinking, who can I turn in so I can get out of this? But he won't. He won't get out of it, at least not completely, that's for sure. So that's the thinking that I have. That's why it's taking longer, I think, because there are a lot more people to indict and they're still working on it. So those are the letters. Lots of it going on. And it's kind of exciting to see, because now we know that things are going on, because a lot of people have been saying, what's the Senate doing? Why aren't they working on stuff? And I really thought that it was going to happen in the Judiciary Committee, or like I said, the Intel Committee. And so I've been keeping an eye on those. I didn't even think to do this one. But I'm so glad. If Ron Johnson is your senator, you need to cheer that man on, because he's doing a really good job here, it looks like. And, of course, Chuck Grassley. He's known for his letters, and it looks like he's been busy doing some of these, too. I'm sure they work together on them. But it's exciting. It's an exciting time, because all the things that we heard about 2 years ago, we're now starting to see happen. And that's just the way it was. Future proofs past. That's it. Oh, and speaking of future proofs past, oh, you guys, I have a new t-shirt and it's like terms about the 17th letter of the alphabet. And it's actually not just a t-shirt. I have like a big blanket and I have a pillow that you can get. I've got the pillow. It's really cool. And it has a bunch of the different terms and things that you can see on there. And some of them will be really, really tiny, but it's just mostly for design on those. But there's a lot of bigger ones that you can easily read. And it's just a lot of terms that have to do with the 17th letter of the alphabet. So it's a really cool shirt. But there's one thing about it. I can only sell 100 items of that particular design. So if you want something, you're going to have to go get it fast, I guess, because I only have the license to sell 100 items. And then I have to revise the design. So I can use a similar design. I just have to revise it a little bit again to get another 100 items on that design. But I actually have two versions of it. I have a version that goes on the dark shirts and a version that goes on the light shirts. So it really is pretty cool. I'm looking at it right now. It's really neat. I just got it in the mail today. And it's like, ooh, I really like that. It's definitely a conversation starter. And it's really just nice looking at all the different words. Anyway, I'll put the link down below. You can go check it out. For some reason, YouTube doesn't like me enough to allow me to do like the little store thing underneath my videos. It won't give me that option, even though I fit all the criteria. So I think it doesn't like me. Yeah, what's new, huh? Right? So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.